Hello again. This is the 25th of July 2022. Came across this article. It's actually a short video, 6 minutes and 25 seconds, put up on December the 3rd, 2021. It had 643,345 views. Title: How Alec Baldwin's Single Action Army Revolver Fired. Let's have a listen. We'll listen to it for the first time together.
Hey guys, I want to show you a quick video on the mechanics of how a single action army revolver works. This is the type of pistol that Alec Baldwin used when he negligently killed the cinematographer on set of the Rust movie. Let me play you what he described he was doing first.
And I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
So you have this Colt 45, you just pulled
the hammer as far back as I go without cocking the actual
and you're holding onto the hammer.
I'm holding that. I'm just showing her. I go, how about that? Does that work? Do you see that? Do you see that? She goes, yeah, that's good. I let go of the hammer. Bang, the gun goes off.
Okay, guys. A lot of what he's saying is obviously lawyer speak, if you will. He's trying to push blame into a different direction to not have it on himself. But let me explain some things to you. The type of pistol he was using was very similar to this. I'm using gloves to not be a distraction when I do close-ups. Pieta is an Italian company that's been in business for about 50 years. They make Western replicas that are used in a lot of movies, and they model their gun after this. The type of pistol that Alec Baldwin used is modeled after this single action army. This is an actual Colt model, Colt single action army, but the Pieta brand is modeled exactly after this from a spec standpoint. In other words, this is the original. They use a replica in the movie, but it's exactly like this to spec. So I want to make very clear, and it was this is a 357, by the way, and the one that Alec Baldwin used was a 45 long Colt, which is a more common round used in the Western era that he was filming the movie in. But I want to show you some things. Alec Baldwin, first of all, just so you guys know, there's a couple of ways that you can check to see if this particular firearm is loaded or not loaded. It's a little bit difficult. In anybody else's defense, I will say it's a little difficult. Whenever you partially cock this thing in the half cock position, it will allow you to rotate the cylinder so you can look at it through there. So you would be able to see what type of round you had from the nose of the actual projectile. On the other side, as you can see, it's empty. There's nothing in the cylinders. But many of your revolvers, you guys know that you can rotate the cylinder completely out. Like the cylinder, you can usually hit an engagement over here for the ejection point, and it'll push the entire cylinder outside the frame of the firearm. The single action armies weren't like that. The single action army have a gate right here. You'll see, let me get up close so you can focus on. There you go. See that gate right there? This gate opens and closes. Now, as you can see, the muzzle's over here. I'm not pointing this firearm at me, but that is how, if you have in half cock position, as you can see where I'm at right now, you can rotate the cylinder, and you can see there's nothing in this cylinder at all the way around. So I know this gun is unloaded right now. That's kind of important. But again, the cylinder does not roll out. So it is a little bit more effort to identify whether or not this type of firearm is loaded. Again, if you want to rotate it and look in the front to see, you have to aim it to the side a little bit, but you can see if there's something in there. Obviously, the more effective way is to lower the gate and look at it through the back of the cylinder to ensure that nothing is in there. Now, with that being said, this is in the half cock position. If I want to lower this, I have to pull the trigger or engage the trigger gently while I'm holding on to the hammer to lower it back forward. That is potentially one way that Mr. Baldwin killed the cinematographer. If he were lowering it, that could happen. Now, lowering it would have to have been done a little bit farther back. And let me tell you why. Note whenever I pull the hammer back, note the cylinder is going to start to spin. See how the cylinder starts to move? So if you're in somewhat of a half-cocked position, the cylinder is going to move, and as it goes back forward, it moves back in place. It does that so that it aligns the primer and the projectile that's inside with the firing pin, as you can see right here, the tip of the firing pin right there. So it aligns those two. That's why you see it move forwards and backwards. Now, once you get into a half-cocked position, it will not go forward on its own. Mr. Baldwin is saying he dropped the hammer as he was cocking it backwards, and he mentioned the half-cocked position. It won't go forward on its own. You still have to engage the trigger in order to let it go forward. In the full cock position, which is really more likely where it was, that's fully cocked. Now, this cylinder is not going to move out of battery. It's in battery, the projectile inside, the primer, everything is lined up perfectly, where this firing pin right here is going to, when you pull the trigger, engage it going forward and hit that, strike that primer, sending that projectile forward. That is more likely what Mr. Baldwin did. If you notice, he was very specific that he did not pull the trigger. He may not have pulled the trigger in his frame of mind. He's thinking, when I pull the trigger, I shoot the gun. But if he was lowering that hammer, he had to engage the trigger. If you follow me. There is no way in the full cock position that this hammer can go forward without engaging that trigger. That trigger had to have been manipulated in order for that hammer to go forward.
Now, the other side of the coin is, was there a defect? And the only one that can answer that is the FBI. And we know there's crooked as sin. How do we know they're crooked as sin? Well, we still don't know about Anthony Weiner's computer and the file called life insurance. And look what they did with Hunter Biden's computer. They kept it hidden until after the election. And did they tell us the truth about Route 91? I don't think so. How about the assassination of Robert Kennedy? Saran had an 8-shot 22. There were 11 shots fired according to the audio tape. The whole thing's just absolutely disgusting and sickening. Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger, period. And he needs to be held accountable for unintentional manslaughter. You might want to send a copy of this video to that worthless Attorney General in New Mexico. Tell him or her to get off their ass and charge Alec Baldwin with unintentional homicide. The link will be attached. Look at it. Pass it along to like-minded friends. Send a copy to your worthless representatives. And thanks for listening.